IB 50 member Etsy crushed analyst estimates for the fourth quarter, reporting a third quarter in a row of triple-digit growth for both the top and bottom lines. Joining me now to provide a closer look at what's behind these strong gains and what's ahead is Etsy CFO Rachel Glaser. Thanks for being here today, Rachel.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So first, 2020 was a huge year for Etsy. Gross merchandise sales more than doubled, as did the company's revenue. Etsy was in growth mode, of course, even before the pandemic, but that growth has really accelerated over the last year.
It was a really transformative year for Etsy. When the whole world changed, Etsy really stepped up to create even more opportunities for small businesses. We did over $740 million of mask sales alone in 2020, but we also outpaced e-commerce overall by 2.5 times. So our 2020 GMS crossed $10 billion for the first time in 2020 and grew over 106%. So our underlying business really grew as well.
Yeah, and it sounds like this explosion of growth really required Etsy to scale up the business. So can you detail for us the journey from a corporate strategy perspective on that front?
Yeah, we in 2020, we had 2 times more new buyers in the year before. We also reactivated millions of new buyers as well. So new plus reactivated buyers in the fourth quarter alone grew almost 100%. And so one of the things that we've been doing is really leaning into our marketing and product initiatives to really remind people that Etsy is here. Many people have experienced Etsy. In fact, when you talk to customers who haven't been to Etsy for over a year, they don't even know that that they have lapsed. They think that they're Etsy customers, but they don't remember why to come to Etsy and when to come to Etsy. So in a moment when Etsy, for instance, was the only place where you could find face masks for a while, it reminded everybody that Etsy has this tremendous depth and breadth of products. And so we've really leaned into our marketing and product to bring more people back to Etsy. And when they get there, to convert them better with really improved product experience. So we've seen a lot of improvement, not only in the amount of customers coming to Etsy, but the increase in frequency. So for instance, one of the metrics we talked a lot about on our recent earnings call was that our fastest growing segment is what we call our habitual buyers that come to Etsy 6 or more times in a year and spend $200 or more. That segment grew over almost 160%. And the percentage of repeat buyers, those that are coming to us 2 times a year, the percentage that became habitual buyers in the quarter grew 11%, up from 7% in the quarter before. So we're seeing a lot more frequency of people remembering why Etsy and when Etsy.
And let's drill down a little bit more into that breadth and depth that you mentioned. What product categories is Etsy experiencing the most growth? How do you see that playing out over the next year?
So our top 6 categories drive 80% of our total gross merchandise sales. And those top 6 grew over 85%. So that excludes all those mask sales. Etsy's growth overall in the year was up over 100%. In the quarter, it was up 118%. The top 6 include the biggest category is home furnishings and home decor. And it had some tremendous growth in the quarter. So just on the 5 days alone from Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday, grew over 220%. In fact, that category was over 40% of the gross merchandise sales in the UK. So we're seeing really strong growth for the year. It grew over 100% as well. Some of the other large categories include clothing and jewelry, and those also grew really well, over 60-70% in those categories. But you could see those are a headwind to Etsy's overall growth. So even though they're growing really nicely, those categories post-pandemic will have a lot of opportunity for growth. So we're seeing, broad growth in all of our top 6 categories. As a reminder, there's 50 other categories that we're in. And those obviously are growing more than the 85% growth that the top 6 had. So those are really contributing to Etsy's overall growth as well.
And on that habitual buyer front, you mentioned home furnishings, home decor being some pretty big drivers there on the category side. How do you continue to steal market share away from those really big competitors in those groups? When we go beyond the pandemic.
Etsy really has always stood for something special. First of all, our mission is to keep commerce human. And one thing that Etsy has that many other e-commerce merchants don't have is a seller on the other end of every transaction. There's really a human connection. For instance, I was just buying a baby gift for a colleague, and the item that I wanted was going to take a few weeks, but I was able to message the seller and ask, what do you have that's already in stock? And she was able to respond. We were able to work together to figure out what was ready to ship and get that item over to the recipient. And it always comes with a handwritten note from the seller. So it's a different kind of transaction. Overall, we outpaced e-commerce by 2.5 times. So there's, even though e-commerce is growing, Etsy is growing faster. Now we know we're getting some tailwind from the current environment that we're in. So right now people are, all of e-commerce is getting some benefit from people not being able to shop offline. But we actually think that post-pandemic we'll be able to, we're hoping to be able to maintain our growth versus e-commerce because of that special that we have, that you can really find almost anything. You can you can think of anything that you might search for on any other mass e-tailer today. Try searching for it on Etsy and you're very likely to find it. Only ours will be made especially for you to your specification, and come with a little something extra because you're supporting an individual entrepreneur on the other end of that sale.
And speaking of search, I know you're talking about search when you're on the Etsy platform, but can you provide a little bit of information of maybe what kind of success that you're seeing on the Google search front and getting customers? What share of people are coming to Etsy for the first time through Google search?
Yeah, well, we talk about our investment in marketing, but let me first mention by saying that about 80% of our GMS, our gross merchandise sales, comes to us from unpaid efforts. So half of that is just organic www.etsy.com. So people are remembering the brand and coming to us directly. And the other part of that free is coming to us through our efforts in brand marketing, in our SEO efforts, in our email and CRM efforts. So about 21% of our total gross merchandise sales in the fourth quarter came to us from our paid efforts. So from us using our performance marketing tools through Google and Facebook and others to drive traffic to Etsy's site. One thing that we did in May of last year was introduced a product that we call offsite ads, which is really a way for us to cooperatively market with our sellers. So we place the product listing ads, and when a seller's listing has a successful sale, a seller will pay for that, a little bit extra for that particular transaction. And that helps us, it increases LTV so that we have more spending power at the same level of ROI. So we get about 21% of all those sales coming from a Google type listing, and about 80% is coming to us organically.
And looking ahead, we just saw Etsy wrap up a very strong 2020. As you look ahead to 2021 and you're planning out the year, what are some of the things that you're thinking about to build on the success that you had last year?
So we're continuing to invest heavily on both product and marketing, with frequency metrics as one of the important metrics that we're using to measure growth. So we drove a lot of new buyers in the year. So that was an important metric. But we want the repeat visitation and the repeat purchase behavior from those new buyers. So both our marketing efforts and our product efforts together are working to improve frequency. Some of the areas we're working especially hard on are our search capabilities and on our post-purchase experience. So both being able to find an item more easily And once the customer finds the item they want, we want to build the trust that they know that they're going to get the item on time, and that they know what to do when they receive it if it wasn't what they were expecting. On search, with 80 million items, the habitual buyers, they sort of have it figured out, what words to use to find exactly what they want. So we're trying to get search to be better and better so that we can take some of those qualities that a habitual buyer knows how to use to find things, and be able to use more inference and close that semantic gap so people don't have to guess at the right words to use to find exactly what their item is. So we're making a lot of improvements on the search front. I'll also add here that, Etsy's mission, as I said, is to keep commerce human, and it's been very much a part of our DNA to have goals about our environmental, our economic, and our social impact. And we're very transparent about what those goals are. And we put them, actually file all of our impact goals in our 10K, along with our annual report. And so we've put goals in the last year. Etsy and its sellers created $13 billion of economic value and added over 2.5 million jobs, for instance, into the ecosystem. And we also almost doubled the percentage of our leadership that is underrepresented minorities. We really also care about gender diversity, and over 60% of Etsy's leadership are female. And on the environmental side, we have gone all the way to putting out a 2030 goal to have net zero emissions. So we're really, those goals are really important to us, and we'll continue to work on them in 2021.
Well, those are some big goals, and Etsy saw a lot of success in 2020. So best of luck to you in the year ahead. Rachel, thank you so much for talking all things Etsy with us today.
Thank you.
Hi there. Thanks so much for watching Investing Strategies on our YouTube channel. If you want more executive interviews and analysis of key trends to watch, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date.